like to share mine? There. Oh, there we are. So, did you see it
During
there?
our video,
Oh.
we have a very special episode of You Asked For It Tonight.
Okay.
I'm still not seeing it.
Mine shared. I'm doing that annoying double feedback. Make sure it's in the group. I'm going to just make sure all our social media is started before we actually start today's episode.
Hey, we got
Why is this like that? Oh man. Okay. I think we're all ready. So turn your volume off and you can see who's watching. We can see our comments. Tonight we're doing a very special story. We're doing a local story. Well, it's more than just local, but about Marshall Iwasa. Marshall's been missing since November. We'll get more into details. And I'm honored tonight to have some of Marshall's family here with me to talk about it and give you guys the airtime and voice that has not really been given to this situation. So I just would like you both to introduce yourselves tonight.
Hi, I'm Cassie Iwasa, and I am married to Marshall's cousin.
And I'm Kat Lee, originally Catherine Iwasa, and I am Marshall's first cousin.
I'm so happy to have you both on here. I've known the Iwasa family for quite a while. Kat and I used to work together, and I know I did your cousin's hair for over a decade.
Yeah.
And Marshall's mother, Tammy, has been a friend of mine for a while as well. So this opportunity came up, and I just thought it was great for us to get together because there's a lot of information that has not been known, and most people are just seem to be familiar with the actual missing posters of Marshall, and that's their connection to this. But it's a little shocking we're still with no more information, or so as it drags on. So we've prepared some questions, and we are excited to. You're excited to come and share this information, and hopefully get. Well, that's the goal here: is to get information about Marshall and find Marshall. That is our goal.
Yeah, we appreciate your time for doing this with us. That's what's always a constant battle that we're facing, is getting more awareness out there. It's always surprising when you hear about people from our small city of Lethbridge who don't know all the details, and we feel like we push as hard as we can to let people know about Marshall missing, and yet you still find lots of people that don't know.
I think that as well, and I think we all have that personal moment when you see a missing poster. It is very jarring. I mean, we all remember when we first saw that Marshall was missing, and for me it was 7-Eleven, and we all have this. I think people who see it, your heart goes out, but then we don't really see all that follow up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see it because I see your family around, and and yeah, I'd be able to talk with Tammy, and I hope she's watching tonight. I'm sure she is. I hope all your family and friends are watching, and they are welcome to. We can actually see your comments while we're on air. So if there's a comment you want to make or a question you want to ask, I think we're open to that. But let's keep it very positive, and let's keep it in the just very respectful, and informative is what we're here to be, informative.
Right.
And also, probably for you guys to dispel some rumors, because it hurts when you hear false stories being told and you're not feel like you have that voice. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a very clear conversation about Marshall.
Yeah, that's great.
Tell us about him.
Yeah. We'll start off by telling everyone that Marshall is originally from Lethbridge. He went to high school here. He played football. Just your normal average guy, was well liked. His employers loved him. His friends loved him. He was always a good-hearted, genuine person. And it's completely, for us, out of character, this whole situation. And I say this a million times to anyone I talk to. It's not like what you see in the movies. It's when you watch a movie, things just happen and everything happens so quick, and there's explanations for things, and we're facing a very real situation where we don't have a lot of answers for a lot of things yet. And for us, a lot of it doesn't make sense. Marshall was well loved by his family. He was always so energetic and happy when he was with us. So for this to happen, it's complete out of like character for him. It's just very unusual.
And we were just with him in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went camping in the summer. We had a family reunion in the summer, and everything seemed normal.
It's really about bringing that humanity to this situation. This isn't a movie. This is real life affecting real lives. And so, again, I know this can be difficult, and I really appreciate you being here again. I know we've laid out some questions, and I appreciate a little overview of Marshall for people who didn't know Marshall, because out of your family, I didn't know him personally, but I do know you, and I'm happy to have this conversation. I think we should get into it. I think people want information. Your family wants to get information out, and are you ready? Question time?
Yeah, we'll start from the beginning.
Okay, here we go. Let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us how you first found out Marshall had disappeared?
Let's start it.
We first found out that Marshall was missing. Well, we basically got a phone call on November 26th from Paige, who's his sister who lives in Hawaii, who said that she got a phone call from the Pemberton RCMP saying that Marshall's truck had been found, or they believed Marshall's truck was found in a remote location near Pemberton. We weren't even sure where Pemberton was at this time, so it's about 2 hours north of Vancouver. So at this time, we had no idea that anything was going on. And then, the only reason that they were able to identify the vehicle was because Marshall's passport was on the ground outside of the truck.
And it seems like that's about as much as people seem to know. When I talk to people and they see his poster hung up at my salon, that's about where I think it ends. And like you, I didn't know where Pemberton was either, and I think a lot more people do because of Marshall, because where is Pemberton, right? So where was the truck found is our next question, and I kind of answered, but to go into that.
So it was found at the trailhead of the Brian Waddington Hut, which is about 40 kilometers north of Pemberton. Like this place, you can't even Google Maps to find where it is. Like we have no idea how he would have ended up there, you can't even.
Yeah, to our knowledge, Marshall had never been to that area. He had never talked to friends about that area. There was no reason why he could end up there that any of us would know why. And from what we understand from a lot of the locals, they say it's a very difficult place to find. You just don't find it on your own. You have to kind of know where you're going to end up where his truck was.
That kind of goes into our next question, and that was Marshall familiar with this area?
As far as we know, he had never been anywhere near there that we know of.
No.
And like we said, especially because he didn't have his phone on, we have no idea why he was there, how he would have gotten there, how he would have found it. That's a mystery on its own.
Well, and if you guys were camping this summer and spent time outdoorsing with him, I saw pictures of him doing outdoors activities, you think he'd mention, I know this great place up there.
Yeah.
Right? And you said, as far as you know, there's no knowledge of Pemberton.
No, and he's not the type to just take off on his own to do something like that. Like, it would be dangerous for him to, like, go to the mountains by himself and not tell anyone or go with anyone. The drive from Lethbridge to that area is at least 14 hours, and, I mean, we know he would have stopped. So 14 hours is probably being on the conservative end of how long it would have taken him from Lethbridge to get there. It's quite an extensive drive, so
Well,
it's unusual.
if you're driving that long, you're obviously stopping places, you're buying food. Was he, when he left Lethbridge, was he packed for a trip? Like, that,
Not that we were aware of.
how long was he, sorry, I'm going off script. How long was he in Lethbridge visiting?
He was only supposed to be coming down, essentially just for a quick little visit. He was just coming down because he needed to get, and this will actually come, I guess,
Okay,
sooner.
well, should we wait? Should we wait?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's okay.
We'll
No,
go.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So his purpose of coming to Lethbridge, which we were aware of, was he needed to fix a piece of his computer, which he had some warranty belongings inside a storage unit that him and his sister have. and they share this storage unit, and so he was coming down to get this warranty piece that he had needed. And during his time here in Lethbridge, he stopped to say, hi to his mom.
Yeah. So he was just down for the day, or that night. He seen his mom at about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it was
I
quite
think
late
he
by
stopped
the
there.
time he got here.
Yeah.
I don't mean to have overskipped. Did you want to say anything, Kat, about how or when you found out Marshall was missing?
Yeah, I got the phone call from Paige first thing, pretty quick after she got the phone call from RCMP asking, we didn't handle it like immediate where you think, oh my goodness, something has happened right away, because she said, has anyone, talked to Marshall? So I put it out there on social media, just kind of keeping it calm and saying, has anyone, seen or talked to my cousin Marshall? Keeping it very casual, trying to come up with explanations. It was not that long after getting some more details about the truck and everything, that we knew something was very wrong. And just time frames of everything of when he had been in last contact with people that were close to him, we knew something was going very wrong.
If you've seen the picture of the truck, I don't know if you have,
Yeah,
but if you've
it's
seen
a jarring image.
That's where I think seeing that picture is where that's when everyone knew something was wrong.
Well, and okay, we'll get to that. Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
jump ahead. Sorry. If you want to look on, let's just tell people where they can keep up to date with information about Marshall and how they can help or give information. Tell us about your page on Facebook.
Yeah, we have a page, Find Marshall Iwasa, on Facebook, and that's where we've been trying to keep everyone up to date. We have over 11,000 people in our group who have been so amazing. That's where we even try to have discussions with people, have question and answers for people. We share lots of pictures. That's our go-to place.
That's the hub. So
Yeah.
I'd like you all to check out Find Marshall
Find Marshall Iwasa.
Iwasa on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I notice you have a hashtag, Find Marshy.
Yeah.
It's fine, Marshy.
What is Marshy a nickname?
It is a nickname of his.
All of his, for all of our kids, they call him Uncle Marshy.
Uncle Marshy.
Yeah.
Do you want to check in on your page and just see if his anyone particular you want to give a hello to, or see if they're watching? Because I know his sisters are not from here.
Yeah, so we are actually speaking on Paige's behalf. We did talk to her before we accepted everything with this, and we kind of ran through everything we were going to be discussing. Some of it will be a little more detailed and a little new, that we will be talking about today. We've had a lot of questions and a little uncertainty of how exactly to answer some of the questions. And so we're hoping that after today of our talk, we've at least answered everything that we can, that we know how to at least answer.
And give information, because I can already see questions popping up on the live feed, which maybe you'll want to go back through and read and address later, not on air.
Yes, and we will go back and we will try to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, so you see a lot of comments of wanting to help, and then we see the other questions on the live feed, so you can go back in your time and answer.
We will.
If you, okay.
For sure.
So the truck is...
Okay, here we go. Okay. Can you explain to us about the truck, how it was found? We've seen the image of the truck, and just tell us a little bit about that scene and who discovered it.
So on November 23rd, it was found by a group of hikers who were going to the Brian Waddington hut. They described the scene as very eerie, like someone was watching them, and the vehicle was obviously burnt. We've seen that, but by the time they seen it, the vehicle, they said, was cold. So we still have no idea when exactly the day it started. Sometime between obviously the 18th and the 22nd, most likely.
So we're talking the 18th to the 22nd. We're talking a 4-day window kind of
Right.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these hikers, the vehicle was cold. Items were scattered. They felt it was eerie. Of course, anyone walking upon that would think it was eerie, right? Something's wrong.
Something was wrong.
Something is wrong if you see a scene with stuff burnt and scattered.
Yeah.
And in my CSI brain keeps thinking, like, well, can they lift items? When was the last snowfall? You know, try and do all these things, right?
Right.
To get information. So is it
Right.
actually local Lethbridge police who go to Pemberton and search, or are you dealing with Pemberton police?
It started with RCMP in
Pemberton
Pemberton.
RCMP.
Okay.
And now it's in Lethbridge's hands. But they work, as far as we know, they work together with when they need information from each other.
This gets very hard, and it's hard for people to navigate, and we talked about this before the show. When you're dealing with a case that you've never dealt with police, RCMP, we don't know how this works. We don't know how the court system works. We're getting a crash course in our lives with this.
Jurisdiction issues.
It's very hard, and I mean, Marshall was living in Calgary, but now it's in Lethbridge's hands, but Pemberton, it gets very confusing for the family and friends, and it's hard to keep all the information straight, so
It is.
you guys are doing a good job, and I think that is that great that we have social media that we can try to compile that on like Marshall's page on Facebook, because
Yeah.
any more about that?
Clarifying the passwords.
Yeah, let's talk about, we all have heard about this passport.
Yes.
And the 3 cell phones.
And the cell phones. So
Yes.
we've heard there's cell phones on scene, and we've heard there's passports on scene.
Right.
Answer that one for us.
So that there was so much. There was toiletry bags, clothing, other random items. Like the scene was, there was stuff everywhere. And basically, people thought it was really weird that he had 3 cell phones. None of those cell phones are phones that he currently was using. And even Paige said when she was in, his sister said that when she was in Marshall's truck in the summer, he did have all of his broken cell phones in there, and they were broken already because I think the first report was that the cell phones were smashed.
Right.
Right, like angrily smashed, but she said no, like they were broken. Like he was hard on his cell phones, and then he just threw them in his glove
Yeah,
box or
just
wherever.
forgot
And,
about them.
And, and it wasn't, and now tell us about the passport as well. That's
yes, and she even told him in the summer that he probably shouldn't keep his passport in his
car.
vehicle.
Yeah.
So that wasn't, like, nothing was weird. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it was a drug deal, but no, they weren't being used, none of the phones.
the judgments and the victim shaming is something very horrible, and I've been experiencing, I'm sure you guys experiencing, smashed cell phones, extra cell phones, electronic items. They think of sketchy scenarios. It's not very fair.
Right.
And it's not, and I'm sorry, if I was going to burn my truck, I wouldn't throw everything outside of it first. Not that I would ever burn my truck, but it's weird.
Yeah.
That's what's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The truck is where everything
Yeah.
gets weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you're searching for answers, that's your only place to go right now. Well,
Yeah, and there's just so many things that were there too. And we're lucky in some ways that, I mean, as far as we knew with the truck even, the truck was so badly burnt that they couldn't really even pull off the VIN off of it. So we're in some ways lucky he had his passport there, because
Wow.
if they didn't identify the passport as Marshall, it could have taken a very, very long time for them to even know whose vehicle that was.
Wow.
Which is very scary, because then we could have just gone a very long time without even knowing anything.
right. And even though you have this piece of information, it doesn't actually give you any peace of mind or feel better, because all you have is this scene. And and it doesn't really, well, I think there could be answers, but so here's my next question. Was there anything found at the scene of the truck being burnt out that didn't belong to Marshall?
Yes. We believe there was items that do not belong to Marshall.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. We will leave that, but that's something that you'd want to know, right?
Yeah, like
And-
from some of the images that his sister was able to look at, she doesn't believe that some of the things at the scene were his, but have not yet even been able to verify a lot of the items yet as well.
Right.
She has not been able to look at them or
Right. Just from photos.
Just photos so far, yeah.
Have any of these items, to your knowledge, been fingerprinted? Because I've seen all the movies. This is how we expect things to go. Has it been fingerprinted?
No, nothing at the scene has been fingerprinted. However, it's being preserved that if they do need to fingerprint, they can.
Yeah, like you said, it's not like the movies. Like, I mean, everything that, from my knowledge of this whole situation, you just assume that every single piece of evidence is traced for DNA and fingerprints and you name it. Like, you watch those movies and that's what they do, but that's not how it works in real life. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Is there has to be some sort of reasoning by doing any types of testing or looking into anything, any type of investigating needs to come from somewhere. It needs to start somewhere to why they would do it. And for us, it's a hard thing to understand, and that's maybe just the process of things, but it is frustrating because you just think you got all this stuff here and I just don't understand why you can't, look through it all and investigate it all, because this is what you have here.
Well, like, we have a missing person.
Yes.
I think that's a good enough reason that and what we think is normal in society, if you're missing, then there should be an investigation. Like it's a hard thing to swallow, because this is,
Yeah, we're learning everything for the first time, that this isn't a scenario that anyone could prepare for, and this isn't anything that anyone would know how to react to or even just what to do. And so it's been very difficult that to try to not get frustrated or to try to just have faith in the process is very difficult when we're sitting at 3 months later and you still don't have any real answers and you're still missing someone you love.
It seems like we honestly haven't gotten very much new information since probably a week after Marshall went missing, so it's been a long 3 months of...
It's a hard thing when you're dealing, because it seems like I don't want to talk about anything too sensitive or too personal either here with my stuff, but I had a murder attempt and 11 death threats in August. And that person never went to jail more than 24 hours and is still out there walking around living in Lethbridge. I mean, it's just not like the movies. It's not really what happens. And yeah, there's other worse things than that. And an officer told me that they'll know someone has actually murdered someone and they actually are on the street after 24 hours. And so, I mean, I don't know how the judicial system and everything works, but it is hard when you're just a citizen trying to navigate yourself through this. And the police are trying to help you, but they don't have answers, and it's a tricky one.
Yep.
Okay. Do you guys know how the fire was started in the vehicle?
The truck appears, like, just through the photos you can see it, and we've had some professionals that we have asked to look at the photos say that they feel that there was definitely some sort of accelerant used on the truck.
Okay.
But that has not been confirmed.
Yes.
It was not tested.
It was not investigated.
It looked like an accelerant had been used, but
Yes.
there's been no testing to see what that would be or what it could be.
Right, so they didn't test it at the scene. They didn't move the truck. To this day, the truck is still sitting on the mountain at the Brian Waddington Hut trailhead under the snow. But we've asked our own people who have said that they believe an accelerant was used.
Just from the severity of it, obviously they're experts in, like, the fire departments and things like that, so they would know by just looking at a photo kind of where it would have started and just the intensity of it, of how, if it was the whole truck to if it was the back of the truck, it kind of pinpoints some things and rules some options out.
So what was the next step after the truck was found? What happened then?
The search.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, and that's what it is. We just kind of reached out to as many people as we knew to kind of just see if anyone knew anything, because as far as we knew, the last person who had seen him was his mother, which was on the 17th, which is still accurate to this day. She was the last who had seen him that we know of. And so we were just trying to, plea as much as we could to gas stations and to... Even here in Lethbridge, we don't know if he stayed in Lethbridge till the 20th or, even the 21st or whatever it could have been. So going out to the public and asking people to kind of, look back and think back if they had seen him or his truck or anything, because it's very hard to believe that in this day and age someone can completely disappear.
Not one camera, spotted him.
Well, that's what I have a hard time with this as well. So, okay. So, Marshall, we know, saw Tammy on the 17th, his mother, and then we don't know really after that. I'm going to do an obvious question. Was there any updates on his social media as a person who's on there all the time? Was there updates on social media in that time?
He doesn't have social media.
There's the question. Okay, so this leads me to believe someone has information. Someone has seen him. Right? Like, is there a reward out for information for Marshall?
There is, and Crime Stoppers always has their reward system as well, but just any information, any little bit of information can help. We asked gas stations to take it upon themselves to just look through their surveillance. It was a small window from essentially the 18th to the 23rd that, it's only a few days, that they would have had to have just quickly reviewed any of the gas stations from Lethbridge to that Pemberton area, and we've put on his posters all the different routes he could have taken. And if you're a gas station at one of those places, just take it upon yourself and look through the surveillance, because every day surveillance was getting lost. Every day that went by, it was getting lost, and it's an impossible thing to try and get it all.
I've dealt with this with security issues at my home, where it's after 30 days it's deleted, and if they're not checking it, and Marshall's same driver's license was on the vehicle at the time of it being found. So you're searching for. Right?
Yeah. And a lot of places seemed to have been deleted after 7 days, which the window.
Because you only had 4.
Some
so 3 more.
They're all different.
And by the time we found out about it, we didn't realize,
And
stuff was already being deleted at that point.
And you also just, in our heads, we think that the police are just taking it upon themselves, and there's this database that they can just look for these license plates, right?
Yeah. We could not have imagined what we were.
So, other than Crime Stoppers, is there any offers for information on finding Marshall, like financial?
Yeah, there is a reward system, and that is essentially handled through Crime Stoppers. That's kind of, we run everything through the direct police lines, and then it has to go somewhere for the reward to actually kind of happen. People can't just come in and give any little information that's not actually valid. It has to be verified. It has to be something that's an actual clue to helping. Yeah, a tip.
And so far we haven't had
anything.
Can a citizen give a reward, for information on finding Marshall? Is that a thing?
Well, anyone could.
Yeah,
I mean, we have the GoFundMe page that we are doing, so that this is what is helping us keep our kind of progression of raising the awareness. There's so many things that we have to do. We have searches that we are preparing for. We have now got a PI, or a private investigator, and so there's a lot of other essentially things that we need to things that we need to get to help us find him, essentially.
I just want to, because I know a lot of people want to help, right? And I'm just feeling want to help. And so, okay, can you give us some information about what was going on in Marshall's life at this time in November? What was Marshall doing?
So Marshall was living in Calgary. In September 2018, he had moved to Calgary to go to school at SAIT for computer software development. And as far as we knew, he was still going to school. As of the summer, we had discussions with him about school, and that's where we thought he was. And that's why it wasn't that odd that we hadn't heard from Marshall in a little while, because he was just going to school in Calgary.
He's an adult.
Yeah, he's an adult.
He's in his 20s, and you just assume that he's kind of figuring his life out, and that's very normal at that age, to just have your own life and do your own thing for a little while.
Yes, so it wasn't until he went missing that the police called SAIT just to find out if they had seen him at that time, that we found out that Marshall did not enroll in the September 2019 semester. So he went for 2 semesters, and then he did not enroll for September.
That's a hard way to find that out. And not that it's no big deal. It happens all the time. People don't go back to school. They leave a job. They don't tell someone they're dating someone. They don't tell someone they broke up. It's not that odd, but just that's how you found out about that.
That's how we found out.
But he was living in Calgary, but is Lethbridge. So why is Lethbridge police in charge of the case and not Calgary?
Because this was the last place he was seen.
Okay, just curious. Just curious.
I think they were in charge at one point in time as well, so it's been kind of passed through. a few.
Oh. So Marshall wasn't in school. Was that concerning to you guys when you found that out? People might want to ask that, right?
Yeah.
For us, I don't know. I have explanations for a lot of things. Like, I don't think it's unusual to not tell family that you're not back in school. I've had people even tell me that they've had family members that don't re-enroll and take a little bit of time off and then, go back to school, finish up like nothing even happened, because they're just figuring their lives out. They're a grown adult. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. And so maybe he just, for various reasons, he might have just not wanted to go back to the program. Maybe he didn't like it. Or maybe, maybe he needed to go back to work. There's a lot of explanations, and I don't.
Yeah, been embarrassed, right? Like, he didn't know exactly what he was doing, and that's totally fine.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We have friends who we check into and don't check into all the time. I mean, it's not like, you tell everyone everything you're doing, and so, okay.
Yeah.
But people want to well, what's going on,
I know.
So,
Yeah.
it's not that shocking if someone leaves a job or gets a new relationship or drops out of school or drops a class. Like, it's okay, just so we can clear that one up. What can you tell me about when he was last in Lethbridge, which we kind of talked about, but he was here to just get some stuff from his storage locker, is what we kind of covered?
Yeah, we kind of covered
But-
that.
So
Tell
this
us.
is
Here we go.
Yeah,
Is this
so
where we get new information?
This is kind of new information. Yeah. So we do know that that's the reason he came to Lethbridge. He also went to go see his mom before he went to the storage unit. I see a lot of people have asked how we knew he was in Lethbridge on the morning of the 18th.
Right.
And that was something, I'm not sure why we couldn't say it earlier, but we were to protect the integrity of the investigation, so we were asked not to, but...
Of why he was seen, or there's
well,
this
he
info.
wasn't seen.
Okay,
so,
okay, here.
And that's what everyone is,
Okay.
but who's seen him? We know that, so he went to the storage locker. He didn't realize, we believe, that from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. you can't get through the gate at the storage, where his storage unit
It's
is.
like a blackout time.
Right.
So you have to enter a code to enter the yard.
At 11 till 6 a.m.? Or no?
All the time.
Okay,
You have
okay.
to enter a code just to get into the yard, and then the gate will let you in.
Okay.
But it blacks out between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay.
So by the time he got there, it was after 11, after he left his mom's house.
Okay.
And we know he got in just after 6 in the morning. And then he was in the storage unit. We know that he left the storage unit just before 8:30.
So
We don't know what he was doing in there for 2.5 hours.
that seems normal to me.
Does it?
To go through stuff, yeah,
Yep,
for sure.
yep.
Because you're going through memories stuff. What do I want to take back to my home, Calgary? I think that's
Yeah.
Yeah, and he came down because he was looking for something, and we don't know exactly, it could have been a small little piece of paper, and he would have had to have dug through boxes to find it,
A warranty.
Yeah.
Yeah, a warranty item for his computer
Or,
is
you
what
know,
he was looking
yeah.
for.
well, but also when you put stuff in a storage unit, sometimes it's not perfect, and
Right.
and how often do you want to go back? So while you're there, you look for your shit.
Yeah, and-
Where's those shoes I left?
And
Where's
it's
that
very
thing?
well that yeah, exactly. We, unfortunately don't have the surveillance anymore from that area to know what he was doing.
7 days is how long the storage unit kept their surveillance. So
As well.
by the time we found out that he was at the storage unit, it was day 8.
Well, and okay. It was
Yeah.
day 8. You found out that that's when he was there, not the night before. Again, we would assume if we did see footage, we'd see Marshall going in and going out. It's, it was his code, it was his thing,
Mhm.
and it sounds like if he went in right after 6, he was waiting for that blackout to.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just out sleeping in somewhere. He was. I
He
don't
was,
know.
yeah, he was waiting
He
because it
was-
showed that he was trying to get in after his mother's.
Okay.
And
Multiple
showed
times.
he couldn't get in.
Right.
So then he knew he had to wait till it opened, and then he went in the morning.
And he went in
He
right
kept
after it
trying
opened.
Yeah.
a few times throughout the night.
So, okay, because I was thinking, you crashed at someone's house. Someone tell us where he
Yeah.
slept, right?
No, I think he didn't quite. I from what we understand, we don't think he knew that it
Had a
He
blackout.
was blacked out. He was
time.
probably wondering, like, why isn't it working? And kept trying. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So,
then maybe finally figured it out.
but it's not like he went out and then slept until noon and went in. It was like he went in right in the
Mhm.
morning.
I think at like 6:01.
Right. Okay. So as soon as it let him in, he was in.
Yeah, he was in.
Okay.
Mhm.
But since then, like,
Is there any more about that?
Paige, like, Paige has seen the storage unit, and she has gone through it
With the
with the
police.
police,
Yeah.
and nothing seems unusual. Nothing seems like it's really even missing. So, you know, with all the questions that you always get with even the storage unit, you know, from everything she knows in there, she said it wasn't like, there was nothing unusual. There was nothing like of extreme value in there, you know, kind of things. And so we've gotten questions about pawn shops and things like that. And we did check into it early on, thinking, yeah, maybe he needed to get something, but it's all came empty. Like, he hasn't been to any pawn shops.
Well, it's really weird when you hear the word storage unit. People start thinking of like storage locker wars and
Storage wars.
finding pythons in there and valuable stuff, or drug dens, or weird things are going
Right.
on. This is a locker unit he shared with his sister.
Yeah.
So let's just clarify that and she's been there. It was just the normal storage unit locker.
Right, and she moved to Hawaii, right? So there's a lot of things that she didn't take with her that are in there as well, and
They're still there.
Yeah.
still there. Everything seems to be still there.
This
the
is-
last time he was in there was in August, so
That's a huge time. So if I haven't been in since August,
Right.
I'm going to find what I'm looking for while I'm there.
Right.
I just wanted to really clarify that there's nothing spooky about this storage unit. He shared it with his sister, and
Right.
it's,
But even his, like, gear, like, people think, oh, maybe he was just going to go out to the mountains and go hiking or go be adventurous and this and that. But all his hiking gear or his camping gear, all his things that he would have needed to have taken with him if he was going to go there was still there.
was there.
This information's come to light. Okay, so we
Yeah,
already
we
covered
covered
that.
that,
We
yeah.
covered that. Okay. We covered that. Has there been any security footage at all through all these cameras in this world that were constantly watched in 2020, 2019? Has there been any footage that has been helpful or information?
Not one.
No, nothing, which is completely unbelievable considering we know, like, you've got a truck that somehow went from Lethbridge all the way over there, and it would have stopped, like, calculation-wise 2 to 3 times at least.
For gas, yeah. At least for gas.
At
It had
least.
to have.
Well, I mean, I'm under the belief that we're being watched all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like there's not a highway camera that they can monitor. Like, I feel like someone is tracking us a little closer than that they're admitting. Because, I don't know, I see cameras on top of lights, and that's just as shocking that there's not a police database that says, oh, on highway, blah, 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 we time every license plate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Don't you think that's weird?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand that there's, like, privacy issues with a lot of things. That's from what our understanding is, because that was our frustration in the beginning, is being like, yeah, like, you just think that the police can do everything, and it's not that case. And we got a real big situation of the Missing Persons Act that a lot of people don't know about, and we didn't know about until this, and it really,
About, like, what a missing person has to be missing, or
Well,
missing
just
person
what
act?
can be done.
Because
Okay.
it's not illegal to disappear, is basically
Right.
what they keep saying. So if he wanted to, let's say he wanted to just disappear and go, and we were trying to get his bank information, well, that is very personal information
Yeah.
that when you don't know if he wanted to be gone or not, they're not just going to hand you his bank information.
So you guys don't have his bank information? So you can't look at where his debit was last used?
No, not detailed. No, they can say when it was last used, but it's not detailed on, like, what he had been doing.
So we know it hasn't been used since he's been missing, but we wanted to know, has there been like a lot of cash withdrawals or,
Of course.
right? Yeah.
Of course.
We don't know any of that.
I mean, I just want to go be an investigator for you and go
Yeah.
open his
No.
mail.
Yeah.
Like, and be like, where, what?
Yeah.
We do see a lot of questions being asked live on the show. If we get through our questions, maybe we can go through and try to answer some of them.
Yeah.
So if you're still watching, we will try to maybe live answer some of your questions, because you might find we're going to answer your questions as we go along with the show. Just in case you are tuning in, we are talking about Marshall Iwasa, here with 2 of his family members, Cassie and Kat. And you can find information on Marshall on,
Find Marshall Iwasa's Facebook page.
and so that's where you can go back and see more and rewatch this if you're looking for this video. So what happens next? What happened next? Can you give us the information the RPM, our our CMP gave. Can you tell us the information that they gave you or the police gave you?
So early on, from what we understood, the RCMP searched for Marshall for 5 days, and they used dogs.
And a helicopter.
And to be specific, cadaver dogs they looked for because they're trying to get a scent for him if he was even there.
Mm-hmm.
They did find articles of his clothing that kind of were by a nearby creek, so they did do a search in the water as well. Like they did a scope through it, and that was a hard day too because I remember talking to Paige that day, and you know you're hopeful obviously that you don't find anything, but you want to find something. You want to find something, but you don't want to find something. It's the hardest thing to wrap your mind around. And when they came back with saying, no, it's clear, there's nothing in this creek, and the creek from our understanding wasn't very deep anyways.
5 feet or something, I think.
Yeah,
they
4
said.
at most.
Yeah.
So yeah, it relieves you in a sense, but then also like, okay, well then where is he? You know, they searched with dogs for 5 days. Okay, where is he? You know, so it's kind of a lot of questions that you just think that if he was there, they would have found a trace of some sort.
Well, of course. So there was clothing items found by the water,
Like a trail leading to a creek.
but this was removed from the vehicle, or like.
Yeah.
That you guys
well,
know?
there was items all over around the vehicle, so as far as we knew, the creek wasn't that far from the truck.
Right.
And they don't tell you what clothing items or what items these are.
There was pictures.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They got Paige to identify if she thought they
if
were his.
Marshall's.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, but again, it still doesn't. It shouldn't just lead to a dead end at that point with no, like where there's this and then it's 5-day search. There's nothing. So
Nothing.
that's extremely.
There was really nothing anywhere else besides that scene, and then a couple pieces of clothing to the creek, which, it wasn't very deep. So they said they searched it and nothing was there.
So there again, that area was searched and they ruled out
Right.
finding Marshall.
They did also tell us at that time we were going through a cold snap here, but there it wasn't even below 0. So they said if he's out there, like he could survive, because here it was like minus 20. So we're like,
Right.
it's really cold, and we were worried
Yeah.
about that. But they said he could survive out there.
Because if you look at the first initial photos of even what we have in our missing photos
There
with the
was no
truck,
snow.
there's barely any snow up there, and I think a lot of people here instantly thought that they were like in a really cold winter, but by that point it wasn't very cold at all. They had probably about, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks of fairly optimal weather.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't that cold in BC by that point.
Well, and then so you're kind of like, why is this search called off? Why are we not still searching? Why is this
Oh.
not continuing? Like, that's how you guys are just sitting here, just like
That was a hard day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's, from what we understand, with when they search for missing people, we don't know why. You know, some people they might search for a day, some people they might search for a week. Like it's kind of different case to case. But the weather was still good from what we understood, but then it was starting to kind of come in. And even for us, we had wanted to get out there. We had a lot of people asking why was our family not out there, and there's a lot of reasons. Like first and foremost, we were told we weren't allowed to go out there because it was under investigation by the RCMP. And secondary, like this is a terrain, this is an area that none of us are familiar with, and to just get random people to go into like the wilderness to search for someone is kind of dangerous as well. And so we
Yeah, you
had our
guys-
faith. We had our faith and trust in the RCMP that, you know, they are from this area, they are well equipped, you know, search and rescue, things like that. They should know how to handle this situation. And so we had this complete faith in them, thinking that if there was anything to be found, that they would find it.
again, it's the reality versus what we think, and we think that we're just all safe and protected, and they're going to do their best. And they are doing their best. 5 days searching is quite a bit with no real, but it doesn't feel like enough for a family or enough. And you
No.
think all these things are being checked, security cameras. You think that they're working like it. It's
Right.
and then they are working. They are working, but just it doesn't work in
Right.
our heads how it really
No,
works.
because when they say they're calling off the ground search, we're like, but you haven't found him yet.
That's what I found
Right?
disheartening. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's what they all found disheartening.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of questions here about these topics.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question from Laura. The clothing was probably came from the hiking bag that was missing. Is this a rumor? Is this?
I wouldn't say hiking bag. Like, he did have a backpack that we know he had, but there was a lot of articles of his personal belongings in the truck. So, I mean, it's not unusual to find a bunch of his things all over around the truck because it was his truck.
But why is there this idea that there's a bag? Wouldn't it could it be burnt in the, or is this something we want to like?
I don't know if there's a hiking bag that's missing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so the clothing probably came from a hiking bag that's missing. We're not actually sure there is a hiking bag that's missing.
Not that we know.
That's not confirmed.
It's been nothing that we've ever been brought to our attention that anything is missing that we know of.
Well, I guess there is a backpack that we didn't find.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what she's talking about.
Maybe that's where it came from. There's
Yeah.
a backpack that wasn't found, but also there's a lot of stuff torched in the vehicle.
And that's where it gets hard is we haven't found the laptop, we haven't found his most recent cell phone, but the vehicle was also torched, so we don't know what was in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a social media guy, I saw there's another hashtag, find Marshy's cell phone.
Oh.
Do you know that?
No?
Well, there's another hashtag I found
Oh.
researching for tonight's show.
I haven't
So that's how I
haven't
knew
seen
I
that
knew
one.
his cell phone was missing from that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I got another question. I thought there were footprints that were the RCMP believed were Marshall's. People are invested. They do want to know. They want to
Yeah.
help.
I
As
don't
far as
think
we
that was
know, that has
verified.
not been confirmed,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of, in the pictures, some of the pictures we seen, we did see footprints as well, but there was also a group of hikers up there, right? So that's where,
And other items that we don't confirm are his, and so there's a lot of possibility that there was other things there that aren't his.
Right.
for us, I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, another person has chimed in saying the area wasn't cold that day or at that time. It's
Right.
They're saying it's mushroom season. So we have a lot of people who actually are invested in finding Marshall, and I think it is such a sensitive issue, being such a local issue and affecting so many people. So again, I just want to thank you both for coming on the show. We're not done, but it's just that you can see that there's a lot of interest in this. Yeah, people are answering your page and your questions for you. We'll go through and answer some more questions after we
So
go.
if you hear from Dawson, that is Marshall's brother-in-law.
So Dawson talking that is Marshall's
Yeah.
brother.
He's manning the questions.
So
for us a
Dawson,
little
thank
bit.
you for watching and for answering that. But it's also, I think it's good because it can clear up these misconceptions that kind of hurt us, like when these things are said. So just what about the storage units? I think we've gotten quite far. We're getting close to the end of our questions. Okay, here's a big one. And is this going to be personal thoughts? I haven't read your answers. We don't know the answers. So it's okay. What do you think happened to Marshall? And this is not speculation. This is your own opinion, personal opinion. This is
Our family has lots of conference calling, sometimes 3-4 hours in a night, and especially in the beginning of this, it was every single
Every
night.
night, yeah.
And we would be constantly driving ourselves crazy, racking our brains of all the different scenarios with all the information that we knew of what could possibly have happened.
You have to.
We're not being naive, and we're not putting our blinders on into thinking that it could be just one thing, because nothing really points to anything in particular.
For me, every time I think about this, so there's a lot of people, do you think Marshall committed suicide? And then every time I just think back to the truck, and for me the truck is what does not make sense. Why the items were, if it was Marshall that burned his truck for whatever reason. We should also touch on Marshall's truck was just paid off in September. This is a $20,000 vehicle that, why would you
He
torch
just
this
paid off.
vehicle?
He would have been happy he just paid off his car.
Right.
I'm glad you're addressing this, and I think this is very important. So I think that, okay, so he has a brand new truck just paid off. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it was him that did it, why did he remove all of his items? If he removed all of his items, was it because he wanted to keep them? Like, was he going somewhere? But if he wanted to keep them, then why are they still there and he's not? Like, that's where it doesn't make sense. Whereas if it was foul play, because we have, of course, considered this as well, why did they leave all the identifying items of Marshall? The only reason we even knew it was his truck, why did they leave it outside for us to find?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't they throw it all, or leave it all in there, torch it, and walk away? And we would know nothing.
Right. Why? If I was trying to get rid of evidence, I would burn the whole vehicle.
Right.
With everything in it. I wouldn't
In both
throw
scenarios, though, both.
In both
if,
scenarios.
If you were doing it yourself or if someone else was doing it. And, you know, we've talked to experts. We've talked to people who are completely involved in missing persons cases or just different cases that are similar to this that, you know, we've reached out to outside resources to be like, you know, are we not seeing things? Like, are we, because we're too close in this, because we're the family, are we just not seeing these things? And, you know, talking to different specialists out there, a lot of them feel like us and say that there's a lot of things that don't make sense. So to definitively say it's one thing it's just not accurate.
Well, for suicide, like, we've asked about, like, is this normal that, like, this would happen with suicide?
Because they do.
Yes.
This is a thing. Real people. This happens,
Of
right?
course, yes.
So,
would they? And they even said to us, we've asked, like,
Like
outsiders,
social workers, counselors,
Yeah.
a lot of different. I've talked to a lady who has over 20 years of experience in, like, mental health and, like, depression and suicide and things like that. And, you know, trying to go and talk to her even just on everything that we're experiencing and telling her just how it is, like, not, like, hiding anything from her, giving her all the details of everything that we know. And it does not seem typical. Like, it just seems so out there. Like, Marshall was not the type of person who wanted attention. So to drive, you know, like I said, a minimum of 14 hours to an area that, as far as we knew, had no idea how to get there, and then to torch your truck, it's just so over the top that, you know, I feel like we would all be completely shocked because it's just so out there. It's just so out of the norm.
because there's a lot of attention on him right now, and he would not like that. Right?
I was just gonna say, like, you told me that he's more of a private person. He didn't like social media, and so this kind of statement of burning your vehicle would get you more attention.
Right.
Which, if that's the kind of person you weren't, you wouldn't create a bigger scene.
No, and you wouldn't drive 14 hours. Like, I think that's where they said you wouldn't typically drive 14 hours if that's what you were going to do, right? You would go somewhere safe or somewhere you loved, or...
I want to just thank you for talking about, because we talk about mental health on my show. We have talked about suicide and domestic violence. These are sometimes uncomfortable conversations. So thank you for even addressing that elephant in the room, because of course you guys have thought about those scenarios, and foul play is even more horrifying. And you know, and then the fact that people think he could be just living in the mountains or live in Vancouver, you know. But again, I think there'd be ways to go about that wouldn't be this dramatic. It doesn't seem in character, right?
Right.
That's the point. Is that why you're...
Right.
Well, yeah, like, we're talking about it because, like, to say, like, I mean, when something like this happens, it's kind of, it seems like it's the easiest thing to say that someone did it upon themselves in whatever shape or form. It's the easiest route to say, yeah, he did it himself. We don't believe that, just because we have the other facts that are out there. But, I mean, we're also his family, so maybe we
Like you
feel
said, they're
things
not
that
seeing
other
it.
people wouldn't, you know.
That's what we were worried about. Like, are we not
Are
seeing...
we too close? And
Right.
so that's why you look to other people to have insight on
Yes.
mental health and
Right.
suicide and these type of scenarios.
Right.
And it still kind of doesn't add up.
Right.
The-
And if he did go there and commit suicide, then where is he?
Where is he? Like, why do you search with dogs, 2 different teams of dogs, and not find anything, not a trail?
I think it's pretty typical, like, and we can't say, but that people would want to make it easier on their family and do it somewhere that was easy to be found and not dramatic, because it's already hard enough. And again, that's not for every case, but it does.
Exactly, and that's where it's hard, right?
The more I learn about Marshall and your situation, the more odd it seems, and that's why you are all invested in this and to find Marshall. And again, if he's out there and he sees you guys with this Paige and your family and watching this, like, do you think about that? Like,
Yeah, he'd probably be a little shocked, I'm sure.
He-
Because, like I said, knowing him, he would not be an attention seeker by any means. So, I mean, just the whole truck situation, like, is just, I just don't think he would have done it. I don't.
you don't think he would have burnt the vehicle?
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, to like
Yeah.
ditch a vehicle or whatever the case is one thing, but
Yeah.
to do that extent is just so loud and it's over the top, and it's just, for me, knowing what I know about him, just seems so out of character that I would have a really hard time believing that he had done it.
It seems pretty, it's not like he burnt down the storage unit and had these kind of things, right? So,
Right. And we also
Well-
have gotten lots of questions about maybe he just wanted to disappear. And he's just
right.
out there living another life. And that even seems like he was a single 26-year-old guy. Like, he could do whatever
Yeah.
he wanted to do.
He
Like,
didn't
there
need to
was
go
this-
hide
he
to
was
do it.
already
No,
doing what he
if
wanted
he
to
wanted
do.
to
Yeah.
move to Japan, he could go move to Japan and
Yeah.
let this family know, just so you guys know,
And
I'm
you
going.
wouldn't burn your truck that you could have gotten about
You-
20,000 from.
You'd
You know?
take
Because you could have
cash.
you would take some
Yes.
cash and go start your new life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good point, and you're right.
Yeah. It's the truck.
It's-
Yeah.
Like,
It's not okay.
Yeah.
Something's up with that.
Yeah.
Did Marshall have a history with the police?
no.
No.
So he wasn't in trouble.
No, they don't, and they don't believe that he was in any trouble because he didn't have any, prior history of being in trouble. So
It
and-
made it harder to even get the
Yeah,
search going.
And so you get a lot of people who, speculate or have their, you get the most ridiculous things that people will say, but the people that know him the most, or the people that are closest to him, would say that he was a good person and that he wasn't involved in, like, gangs or something,
Right.
And it's just, for us, it seems highly unlikely is the best word we always say. It's highly unlikely.
Mhm.
Right.
Even his landlord lived upstairs. He was living in a basement suite, and his landlord was upstairs. Loved him.
Right.
Like, they shared the same laundry, and they did.
He was respectable, like, he was good, he, paid his rent on time. And as, like, when he went missing, there was so many dates that kept coming up that we knew would be out of character for him to miss. Like,
December 1st was the first one, right? That's when his rent was due.
Yeah.
So that was a big day. Well, he'll probably come home to pay his rent, right?
Right. You're like looking to
Like, maybe
show
he's
him
working,
or he if he did need a break,
Some sort
he
of
d-
explanation,
you would.
yeah.
It's like, okay, well, no rent.
right?
Yeah.
And so waiting to see, is he going to do these things? I mean, that's got to be very hard.
And then you go through Christmas, right? Where it's, yeah.
And when people say this, I want to just kind of clarify this. When people say with lost, it's like you don't just miss them at Christmas; you miss them every day.
Mhm.
So it's not just Christmas; it's hard for people,
Mhm.
and then, yeah. So no, it's every day.
It's every day.
You never know what's gonna. So what now?
so we just touched base, or like we just said, that we are getting a private investigator
Okay.
to try and get into those things that have been really hard to get into, like his, cell phone histories and his, like, bank accounts, and we don't know exactly everything that we're going to be able to get into, but we're hoping they can do more. We're hoping they can get into more to give a little more insight and shed a little more light on what was happening even before he went missing. And it just gives us a little more peace of mind to see what is happening or what has happened with him. But and we're just hoping that maybe, because we're not the professionals here, we're not the ones
Right.
who, we don't know the first thing of what to do in these scenarios. Like, everything we've done on our Facebook page, we were luckily guided by a really nice lady, actually. Her name was RL, and she really helped us navigate through this, because when everything happened, you don't even know where to begin. And so the PI, we're hoping that, he will have a little more insight of what to do that maybe we don't know.
All the speculation and talk of what could and stuff, it gets exhausting, because I know that you and your family are probably doing that constantly by yourselves. So really what we are here for today is to not just create more talk about what ifs, but actually get some information of how to find Marshall and that is why we're here. And so we just really gotta say, if you're out there and you know something, that's really what is needed for your family and for Marshall. And like, so people can write in with their theories and speculate, but really we're looking for someone who knows something, because we know there's someone out there who
There has to be.
who saw or knows or was with him or something, like some information, right?
Right.
Even if you're a gas attendant, you're like, I remember him and I looked at the poster 100 times, to just help give that scenario, right? Because that's, if anything, that's what I would hope that you having this platform to get this more out, is that we get some information from this.
Yeah, like that's our constant struggle, I guess, is to keep the awareness out there. It's very hard to, when we don't have a lot to go based off of other than what we just shared now, we don't have that much, and we want to keep the awareness out there where people are sharing it and talking about it and even thinking about it, and hopefully someone can look back and get some footage, or something like you said. There are traffic cams, there's all sorts of security systems or surveillances out there, and just knowing where the routes are, to even just pinpoint one, just to even just one would even verify if he was even
If it was even him, right?
Right, in
That
the
drove
vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cut and dry. That could be something significant. If he's not driving his own truck, that says a lot, that narrows down your huge scale of everything. We have such a huge area to cover, and what we do in our group and what we do as admins is we try to just go based off of the facts that we know. Like, we were asked why we did the search here in Lethbridge. Well, that's what we knew. He was here in Lethbridge last. And we will be doing a search in where his truck was found in the spring when we're able to, and we will be assisted by SRBC in that. But, we're hoping that it doesn't get to that point where we might get some sort of lead or some sort of break in this, because it's been a long 3 months, and it's still going to be a long time before spring hits. Like, it's going to be late spring before we can even get up there.
It looks like you guys are on the right track and have the right people supporting you, and you're doing the right things. And I mean, of course you're gonna go through every scenario. Of course you're gonna search here. Like, we don't have proof that was him who torched the vehicle. Like, there's
Right.
things you just don't know. We're at the end of our show today. You asked for it on Jess FM, on Jess TV. I really want to thank you both for being on the show and for the bravery it took, and for your family. I just want to send my thoughts out to Tammy and everyone in your family. We're all thinking of you. I know you feel that. There's this weird thing, you don't wish people had to be thinking of you. You just wish this never happened. So what kind of closing note would you like to go out on the show with tonight?
We want to, thank you as well for having us on this. Like, all these kind of platforms help us so much. It's hard to even know where to start or where to reach out to get these kind of help. And just our supporters in our group, we could not do this alone. It takes so much work, it's so much energy, and just having the good-hearted people out there who will say, I will take some posters and put them up, and
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Meals and
Meals, yeah.
And that in itself, people don't understand. Our family is huge, and we get together a lot, and we have these huge family things, and so it helped out so much to not have to worry about who's going to feed all the kids.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to leave this open, but this is really a great platform. That's why I love Jess TV, because we are unfiltered. We're not bought and sold. So this is the real information from the real source. So I hope you could get rid of some of the misconceptions tonight, and that give you a bit of peace of mind. But number one, get you more information. I would love to open this up if you ever want to come back to do the show again. I think that went really well. This will be up on YouTube, so that information is actually saved. You don't have to keep repeating yourself, and
Yeah.
so any other last things, any thoughts?
I think we covered it.
We covered it?
Yeah.
For now, yes.
All right, well, thank you so much for being on the Jess FM show. Everyone, we hope you have a great week. Please go to the Find
Marshall
Iwasa
Facebook
Facebook page.
and
Yeah.
Join the group.
Yeah, they can join the group, and if they have any questions, they can ask us directly on there. You know, we have a big family who appreciate all the help and support we're getting, and we do our best to answer as many questions as we can. And so big thank you to everybody for sure.
You really learn in these times how big your circle is.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out who some of the friends are not. That's another show.
Yeah.
That's another show, or the people who aren't there.
Yeah.
No, but it is interesting when you see how big your circle is, right? It is
Yeah.
interesting. So,
Mm-hmm.
thanks again. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're going to go back and we will make sure it looks like we already have some of your family members answering the questions, but we'll look through and see the questions you had. It's just we had too much information to go through today to answer the questions live on air.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both,
Thank you.
Cass and Kat. Bye.